Howdy, and welcome to another video here on the Sulbagog channel. Here on the Sgurnog channel. We like to talk about video games, so what are we talking about this week? Well, let's talk about Spyro, because hey, I got to play some Spyro, the new Spyro game that came out actually like a year ago, so it's not actually all that new, but it is a remake of the first three games, so it's actually like 20 years old, so really not a new game at all. But you know, when I was a kid, I played a little tiny bit of Spyro in a furniture store one time, and that's basically all I remembered. I don't know which Spyro game I was playing. It was on a PlayStation 2, but that could have still been running the first PlayStation game. I really don't know. But anyways, I recommend you play the game if you don't want me to ruin everything about its story. It's extremely deep. It's extremely complex. It's extremely in-depth narrative. Though, as you might be able to tell already, I have my few nitpicks with the narrative. I've got my I'm such a I'm so critical. I'm such a critic, okay? Are you ready for my critical points about the first ever Spyro game? Let's talk a little bit about, let's just phrase it like the thesis of my essay, okay? Why the story in Spyro 1 makes no sense. All right, so here we go. We have these dragons, and they live in these peaceful worlds. They're all different dragons, but we'll talk a little bit more about that lore in a minute. And so they all live peacefully, and for some reason, now let's not even address this, even though it is kind of a question in of its own right. For some reason, there's a television interview happening at the beginning of the game, and the villain can hear it. It's the villain is watching it. If you look at the original Spyro, this makes even less sense, actually, but they kind of made it make more sense in the remake, but they still didn't really, it still doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in any context, really. Not this part in particular, actually. This is the only part that makes sense, which is that he's watching them on TV, and they're like, oh yeah, everything's peaceful, everything's great, and, there's only this, but what about that one guy who might actually be a problem? And then he's like, I'll make sure that I tell you about this guy's not a problem. We sealed him away in some other area of the world, or another world, I guess. And then, the dragon just straight up starts roasting the villain character. He's just like, yeah, he's ugly, he's dumb, he's never gonna do shit. And then he's just like, what? Fuck you! And then he does it. And then he casts my biggest problem with the narrative, probably by far, which is just that he can cast a spell that turns all of the dragons into stone, okay? He can just do that in one fell swoop. It just happens, all right? And, they kind of cover this whole, like, okay, he's also turning their treasure into monsters thing, which is why monsters drop treasure until they stop dropping treasure, which, the game just kind of ignores the fact that monsters respawn even after you get the treasure that supposedly created them. So anyway, the story, he can just cast this spell, right, that just turns every dragon everywhere into stone. There's nothing any of the dragons can do about it. But my biggest thing is like, my first point is, why doesn't Spyro get turned into stone? Is he a lesser dragon? Does it not count? Or did Gnorc just say, oh, I just didn't want to turn him into it because he didn't say anything mean about me on TV, even though he was right there, and he also saw Spyro say, looks like I've got some work to do. So it's just like, he knows he's going to be the one trying to stop him, which, leads into pretty much every other problem with the story, which is, what does the treasure have to do with stopping Gnorc? And I guess in the gameplay, not really a whole lot. Like, sure, it's nice that Spyro is willing to, get all this treasure back because Gnorc spread it across the levels or whatever. But yeah, it's just kind of there, I guess. But what does make sense as far as the motivation of the player goes is saving the other dragons, of course, right? Well, sure, okay, that's definitely a good motivation for the player to go and save all the dragons from a gameplay perspective, and that's not really what we're talking about, because the gameplay aspect is actually perfectly fine, and the game is a great game, and it's fun, and I like it, and the story is actually fun, but it's just really It just doesn't make sense, okay? And that's my critical criticism of this game, okay? So, first of all, my big criticism of when you save dragons is that, first of all, where the hell are they? Well, you save them, and then they're like, first of all, half of them aren't even grateful. They're just kind of like, oh, let me tell you some tutorial shit, Spyro. And you're like, oh, okay, thanks, that's cool. I already kind of knew that because I've been playing the game. And most of them don't thank you. I mean, definitely a few of them do. Some of them react to the fact that they've been frozen in stone magically, instantaneously, without any question asked. Like, not a lot of them really have much of a reaction to it, which kind of raises some more questions, but beyond the point, they just disappear after. It's like, good luck, Spyro, you still have to do everything, even though you've saved all these other dragons, who, by the way, are like twice your size, and probably could help a lot if you, worked with them. But no, I guess they just disappear. They just are like, yeah, bye. And, where do they go? Are they just non-existent now? Did Spyro technically kill them by freeing them? I don't know. They just do nothing. They barely even care. It's just kind of a problem. It's just kind of my critical point of the critical game. And there's another random thing that I wanted to mention too, which is the character of Sparks, the little firefly that's with you. The game implies, now I don't think that this is actually the intentions of the storytelling in the game, but there's one of the dragons you free actually just straight up says, he's like, hey, Sparks is your new best friend, Spyro, and he'll help you on your journey. Did Spyro not know Sparks before the start of the game? I mean, did Sparks just sort of show up and started helping Spyro when the gameplay started, and he was just kind of like, he just kind of went along with it? He was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess you're my best friend now, and you're just going to be my life bar. That's just how it is. I don't have a word to say to you. You don't say anything to me. This is just our relationship now. Because that's what this line of dialogue made me think. Does Spyro not know Sparks or something? I get it, okay? I get it. The dragons are talking to the player, but it's like, but they're not. They're talking to Spyro. It's like, why would Spyro not know who his best friend is, okay? That's another issue I have. Okay, let's just say that, that Spyro saves all the dragons from the stoning-ifying, but it just raises the question to me of why can't nasty Gnorc just cast his stone spell again? Why can't he just go, what? Spyro's freeing the dragons? Well, let me just cast my magical ability and just turn them all into stone immediately again when they're free. Maybe that's the reason? Maybe that's why the dragons vanish, is they're trying to hide in their secret other dimension or something where Gnorc's spell can't reach them, and that's really the real reason, and there's some kind of weird lore behind it where, like, Spyro is just unable to be affected by the spell, not just because of plot armor, but because he also is not a normal dragon. Like, what if Spyro is a lesser dragon, which is why he's so much smaller than the rest of them? What if that's the case? What if it isn't just like Spyro's younger than them? He's also like not the same species as them. I could go on, but I think for once I'm gonna change the pace a little bit, and let's do a little bit of research. Let's see if we can dig deep and get some answers to these questions, okay? We're gonna look at the Spyro manual for the first Spyro game on the PlayStation 1 and see if that can answer some of my burning problems, or at least somewhat address some of my hypercritical criticisms that I've lambasted this game with so far. Alright, so here we got the sort of synopsis for the game from the manual. In the beginning, the 5 dragon families lived in their 5 dragon worlds in harmony. Their lives were happy and peaceful until the day Gnorc broke the rules. Nasty Gnorc was an unpleasant creature from the bottom of his dirty boots to the top of his unwashed head. He wasn't pretty, and his personality combined with the short temper of a gnome and the bad attitude of an orc. Nasty resented the happy dragon families more than anything. He detested their beautiful, shiny jewels, which were not only nice to look at, but showed him reflections of his own ugly mug every time he did so. Nasty became such a problem that he was banished to the dragon junkyard. This was a world the dragons were not fond of, though it suited Nasty just fine. He renamed it to Nasty's World as soon as he got there. Nasty began to fool around with magic spells. After after a while, he hit on the two he wanted: a giant spell to trap all the dragons in crystal, and a potion to animate those radiant gems and turn them into Gnorc soldiers. On a nice sunny day, Gnasty crystallized all the dragons, then he turned all the gems he could find into his willing minions. He even began turning the dragon worlds into Gnorc worlds, but the one little detail he didn't count on was Spyro the dragon. Spyro just happened to be playing hooky again and missed getting crystallized by Gnasty's spell. Okay, so this just opens the floodgates for what magic is in Spyro. I mean, can Spyro just play hooky on being a dragon itself? Is that what they're saying? Like, oh, I'm just not a dragon today because I'm Spyro. I'm rebellious. I go against the authority of being a dragon, I guess. First of all, he found a spell. He got the spell that just turns all dragons into crystal. Okay, all right. Okay, that's a spell. That's a magic you can just learn in this universe. I'm all game, okay? But then just Spyro just doesn't count, even though his name is literally Spyro the Dragon. Sure, okay, that is just blatant plot armor. It's just blatant, doesn't make sense armor. So, there you go. Still doesn't justify anything. So I guess I'll finish reading this for the sake of it. Now, Spyro, the only unfrozen dragon, must travel the 6 worlds, including Gnasty's industrial world, releasing all the dragons and collecting their stolen treasure. In the meantime, Gnasty's minions are doing their best to stop him. Not that Spyro is without friends, of course. The dragons he releases do nothing. I mean, give him hints, and along the way, he's accompanied by Sprax the dragonfly, his best friend. Apparently, what seems like a fun time flaming Gnorcs soon turns into the adventure of Spyro's young life. When he meets Gnasty Gnorc for the final conflict, his destiny can truly be fulfilled. Go get him, Spyro. So that's the save the world for the dragons blurb from the manual. Like I already kind of brought up halfway through there, it doesn't really solve anything. It at least addresses the concept that for some reason Spyro just doesn't get turned into stone. He just doesn't. It just, okay, he gets missed. Even though it looks like it's almost like an omnidirectional attack. It doesn't look like the dragons could just dodge it once and they'd have been fine, but what do I know? What do I know about omnidirectional magic in the Spyro universe? Apparently not enough, because for whatever reason, maybe it's just because Spyro's small. Maybe it's just something as simple as that. Spyro's just a small dragon, so he didn't get hit. He wasn't tall enough to get hit by the omnidirectional blast. Okay, fine. Would Spyro also survive Gleam's blast from Smash Brothers 2? Because, he's just not a character, but he is, I guess. Okay, fuck it, whatever. So that's that aspect of the manual. It doesn't really answer all my questions. In fact, it kind of raises a few more, but it is what it is. It's just kind of adds more evidence that even back then, Spyro's story just makes no fucking sense. Also, we have, why not for good measure, take another look at some more of the manual, just to kind of get a clearer idea of the picture of the world. And no, I'm not just doing this for the documentation of lore. Okay, maybe I am just doing this for the documentation of lore, but let me just do that, okay? We have we have types of dragons in the world, which, again, when I get into them, will raise more questions, like the artisans, the family of dragons that provides the world with artifacts of culture and beauty. They write songs, create sculptures and paintings, and are the most gentle of all dragon families. They are very social beings and enjoy getting together for group singing and art viewings among the lush, rolling hills and green valleys of their home. Okay, that makes sense why they wouldn't be able to do shit against Gnasty Gnorc. But then there's these peacekeeper dragons, which makes me think, okay, why didn't they just kill Gnorc already? If these guys are large, powerful dragons that enforce order, you'd think that if they enforce order, Gnorc wouldn't be able to learn an omnidirectional spell that just turns you all into fucking rocks, now would you? But they are the strongest of all the dragon families and know the most about battling their enemies. They live in the desert, sand dunes, tar pits, and ice caves, and are always on the lookout for any creature breaking the peace. Like Ganaski Gnorkin doing his Gnorkin bullshit, trying to fucking turn everyone to stone instantaneously without question. Except for Spyro, who gets to play hooky because he's a fucking main character, I guess, because because of plot reasons. Then we have the magic crafter dragons. Dragons of this family spend their time making magical artifacts used by all the dragons throughout the rest of the worlds. They are shy around other creatures and like to be alone. They can be very happy in the remote mountaintops, ice cliffs, and caves, studying their craft in peace. And then there's the Beast Makers, which confuse me because they're dragons responsible for bringing forth all new species of creatures living in the world. They choose to live in swamps and tumbled down wood platforms on stilts, in the mud flats, and in hollowed out trees in thick forests. There they can find natural clay and roots and other materials to do their work, which is apparently creating other living beings, I guess? I guess. I mean, what other kind of work would, what other? Okay. And then we have the Dream Weavers, who are the last types of dragons. These dragons are peacekeepers of the night from their island in the clouds. They flit through the dreams of other creatures of the world, making sure there are no nightmares that bother dragons while they're sleeping. Anyone who has bad dreams at night can call on these dragons for help. That's super interesting and all, but doesn't really explain why Gnasty Gnorc was able to pull off his bullshit, even when we have the fucking peacekeepers trying to protect everything. Nope, they just don't exist, actually. Only Spyro exists. That's the problem with the story of Spyro. That is my biggest criticism. There you go. There you go. You got your, that's my problem. Okay, that's why Spyro makes no sense, alright? Okay, there's really not much else to say. In the manual here, it also says that, it also has a little spot on Sparks, so I guess we can see if it'll actually tell us anything about Spyro and Sprax's relationship. It's time you learned a little about me. Spyro's my best friend, and I'll do anything I can to help you out. I can take 3 hits, but then I'm out of there, and you're on your own. That's when Spyro dies, by the way. So that tells us nothing. But what can I say at this point? I am not surprised that didn't tell us anything. And that's my video. So thanks for listening to why Spyro's story doesn't make sense in the event that you needed someone to break it down for you into excruciating detail. I'm sorry if you love Spyro and you're really sad now that I lambasted the living fuck out of your favorite game. I mean, I know that I've left such a scorching criticism on this scaly game, but I actually really like this game, so I recommend you play it if you're still watching and you didn't play it already when I told you to do so earlier. It's actually pretty cool. You can get it on pretty much anything now. The new Reignited Trilogy is pretty cool. It's cool that you buy all games for one price. That's sweet. I'm going to play more Spyro. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a good day, a happy birthday, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, whatever time of the year it is. This is Serbid Gigog out of the world. I'm heading out. I'm disappearing like the dragons, and I just won't exist until I do again. So bye-bye.